You already know who it is. It's Osiris Lord. I'm back with Lord Under the Scope. And today I got something I've been thinking about, something that came up in my past that I met somebody and she was like, oh, I'm depressed, but, I'm highly functioning. So from that day, I never knew that, that existed. Well, till then. Anyway, my point is, it's Osiris Lord Under the Scope. I'm going to talk about Specifically, I want to talk about PDD, which is persistent depressive disorder, aka highly functioning depression. But first, you need to know what depression is, right? People have a general idea of what depression is, and they just kind of think being depressed is sad. Not necessarily, well, people think being depressed is being sad. And it's typically like if you're just sad face and all that stuff all day, that's a sign of someone being depressed, which potentially is, but there are people that have PDD, aka highly functioning depression. So anyway, we're going to start off with depression, and depression is classified as a mood disorder. It may be described as feelings of sadness, loss, or anger that interfere with a person's everyday activities. Though depression and grief share some features, depression is different from grief felt after losing a loved one or sadness felt after a traumatic life event. Depression usually involves self-loathing. That's like, when you're like, oh, moping around in the house and stuff like that, or a loss of self-esteem, while grief typically does not. So they're basically saying like it's different from, if somebody dies and, you get that type of sadness, like that can definitely lead into depression, somebody, dying, that can lead into depression, but it's not the same as I'm sad right now or potentially for a week because somebody passed or this thing happened. So in grief, positive emotions and happy memories of the deceased typically accompany feelings of emotional pain. In major depressive disorders, the feelings of sadness are constant. People experience depression in different ways. It may interfere with your daily work, resulting in lost time and lower productivity. It can also influence relationships and some chronic health conditions. This is from healthline.com, by the way. So that's what depression is. And, that's not necessarily typical, but, people typically are like, oh, this person acts like this, they're depressed. But there are people like myself who I think, again, everything that I'm not a doctor and I don't want you to diagnose yourself based off of what I say. So I do want to say that. I need to start saying that in my videos. I'm not a doctor. I'm not suggesting you do any of these. Well, it's my opinion. Anyway, you get the point. So anyway, there are people like me who have PDD, and that's persistent depressive disorder, or it's called dysthymia. I'm assuming that's it. Dysthymia. So what is persistent depressive disorder? Persistent depressive disorder, PDD, I'll just refer to it as PDD, is a form of chronic depression. The term combines two earlier diagnoses, dysthymia and chronic major depressive disorder. Like other types of depression, people with PDD may experience feelings or deep sadness and hopelessness. While these symptoms are present in all forms of depression, in PDD, they may persist for many years. So basically, without getting further, some people say that it's mild depression. It's like a form of depression that, like, yeah, you're depressed, but you can still get up in the morning and go to work. Now, how much energy is going to take you to get up in the morning and how much energy is going to take you to get to work, and when you actually get to work, how you're going to feel when you work, that is kind of what they're talking about. So someone with depression, in my opinion, from what I've experienced, will typically be like not trying to get out of bed. Oh, I don't want to go to work, blah, blah, blah. But then someone with PDD might be like, oh, I don't want to go to work. But they'll get up and go to work. But they'll be depressed, maybe have no energy, any of that type of stuff when they actually get to work. So that's kind of what PDD is. And symptoms of persistent, well, PDD, the symptoms of PDD are similar to those of depression. However, the key difference is that PDD is chronic, with symptoms occurring on most days for at least 2 years. Many doctors use the symptoms listed in a diagnostic. Okay, I'm just gonna skip to the DSM-5, but it's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So that's the DSM-5. So the PDD symptoms listed in DSM-5 include depression almost every day for most of the day, having a poor appetite or overeating, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, low energy or fatigue. You see my face as I'm reading all these things. Low energy or fatigue, low self-esteem. I definitely don't have that. Poor concentration or difficulty making decisions. I don't really have difficulty making decisions or poor concentration, and feelings of hopelessness. So obviously you don't have to have all of these in order to potentially be someone with PDD. You can have traits of it. You can have a couple of them. I really find that just knowing that these things exist help, whether you have it or not. You know what I mean? So yeah, the cause of PDD isn't known. I mean, I really feel like PDD and depression, they're just one and the same, except one person can manage to get up and go do things, but they'll be depressed the whole time they pretty much do it. Um, yeah, I mean, they have therapy. It's similar to depression. So the means that you would take with depression, in my opinion, is what you would take with PDD. Long-term outlook for people. Since PDD is a chronic condition, some people may experience symptoms for many years. However, identifying symptoms and seeking help is a crucial first step to improving the long-term outlook for people with PDD. Research shows that a combination of psychotherapy and medication programs can be effective in treating PDD symptoms and preventing future relapses. Yeah. So PDD, or highly functioning depression, typically just means someone has mild depression and they can potentially do more work, or at least manage to budge and go do certain things that another person wouldn't be able to. But I'm just going to talk about a couple other things that, again, that was from healthline.com. So I'm just going to talk about a couple things that I feel like happens to people who have PDD or things like that. So like I said before, you might be able to get to work, but you're going to be at work. You're going to have no energy. You might have like random outbursts. You might be working. For me, I think that I get super irritable. I don't get mad. I don't get like, I mean, sometimes I have rage, but it's not rage where it's like I want to destroy things. Sometimes I just get randomly angry for like no reason, and I just have to work on that in my head. Supposedly that's something that people with PDD have. I'm sure people with depression have that as well. I don't really get sad. Yeah, I'm not going to necessarily rant too long. I just kind of wanted to point out signs of PDD and just make people aware of what PDD was, because it's been something on my brain for a while. It's probably literally in my brain, because I can get up and work and go do a bunch of stuff, but sometimes while I'm doing it, I just get so overwhelmed or like annoyed or irritated, but I know that I have to do certain things, and for other people on the outside, it looks like, I have pants on, everyone. So, from the outside looking in, everybody that's just looking in, looking at me or looking at some of their idols or mentors and stuff like that, they're like, oh man, I wish I could be like that. Most of the time, a lot of those people are depressed, or they're highly functioning depressed people, or like there's other things like highly functioning anxiety. I actually just learned about that as I was looking into PDD. So those are something I'll definitely look into, because I find myself to be highly functioning, but sometimes I'm just like, I can't handle this right now. This is too much for me, or whatever. So that's why it's really good to have a support system, and I'm not saying have a bunch of quote unquote normies or was it neurotypical? I have to talk about that word soon. I'm not saying have a bunch of neurotypical people around you. I'm just saying have a good support system for people who know, like, okay, Osiris is kind of irritated right now. I'm gonna either not bother him, or I'm just gonna try to help him out so he's not all like angry and stuff like that. But yeah, PDD, Osiris Lord, the Lord's gift shop. That's something else. The Lord loves you. PDD, dysthymia, or whatever. Definitely suggest you look into it, because you might be like, well, I don't think I'm depressed because I can do such and such and do all these things, but you randomly have random outbursts sometimes. So definitely look into if you have PDD, dysthymia, or persistent depression. Oh man, I already forgot. PDD. All right, Osiris Lord, the Lord loves you. Episode 6. Have a good day. Love y'all.
Where's Ronnie Fig? I need size 9 in every pair. Have my troops in all white boots. Fixing my motherfucking hair. Is he the rugby? Scat it.